Arcade Paradise is a game I fell in love with pretty much the second I pressed start. Its presentation, UI, soundtrack and story all come together to evoke an era long gone, as well as the almost primitive instinct within all young people to be free to live life their own way, especially for those with abusive parents or otherwise very strict ones. At its core though, this is a minigame collection, and as such you'll get games that are better than others, and because I love this game so much, I decided to try and do a ranking of every single machine, going from the one I wouldn't touch ever again when given the choice, to the ones that hooked me and still have me coming back for more. Now please, do keep in mind that a lot of this list is subjective and based on my own experience with the game, so a game I despise might be one you adore, and that's completely fine. If you have any comments about my ranking, please comment down below so we can hear your wrong opinion. Now, rewind your cassettes, comb your mullet, sit on a leather sofa, and let's get on with this. Starting with...
Well, this sucks.
If you were to put a gun to my head and tell me to play Penguin Push to Live, I would pull the trigger myself. This machine feels like torture to play. It's not just that the controls feel weird and the idea of playing the original Mario Bros. Arcade isn't really that attractive to begin with, but it's also the fact that, since it's technically ice themed, all the floors are slippery, and the last thing you want in a game that's all about being precise with your jumps is to have to put triple the amount of effort you'd put in the original game. Arcade Paradise does like to make homages to real-life arcade games, and some are hits and other misses. And this one? Oh brother, it missed so hard it hit itself on the back of the head. It really doesn't help that this is a DLC cabinet, which means you have to pay money for an experience that feels like having your toes be cut off with dental floss over the span of a year. This is the only DLC for this game that I would actively advise against buying, and luckily, the only arcade machine that makes me this passionately angry. It's all uphill from here. I have always liked to play air hockey with my friends in real life. It's a lot of excitement and catharsis trying to ricochet the disc into the opponent's goal, while also trying not to accidentally get it in my own goal. The problem with this, then, is that it's not nearly as fun when playing against the computer, and it's not intuitive at all controlling it with a keyboard. This could have been the perfect opportunity to let you use a mouse, but for whatever reason, you can't. You just can't. And that, coupled with the fact that sometimes the opponent doesn't even touch the disc when launching it at you, makes for an experience that honestly just pisses me off a little bit. Next!
5 ball in the corner pocket.
Okay, this one is a bit awkward. See, the thing is, I have never, ever liked pool or have been good at it. So when I got the pool table for the arcade, I simply went, oh, that looks nice, and proceeded to never touch it. It might just be a me thing. I'm sorry, but when an arcade comes to mind, I think of something fast-paced, short but sweet, not a freaking activity that will take 30 minutes at the least to finish. Also, the hopper collecting's a bit funky.
You motherfuckers are gonna kill all my lilies!
I'll be honest, while it can be fun to play whack-a-mole, or in this case, thump a gopher, once or twice, it becomes evident very soon that it's not as thrilling as the other games in the list. And while it does a good job of adding a bit of variety to the establishment, it's easy to get bored with this one. It's not unfun, and trying to get to 1000 score is a fun enough challenge, but it's far from my favorite. It's as fun as Pong can be, because that's what it is, it's just Pong, and hey, if you're really retro, then I couldn't fault you for liking this game. But in a collection with so many action games, puzzle games, fighting games and the like, with great soundtracks and nice looking graphics, do you really have the motivation to even play more than one full round of Pong? Didn't think so. What's more, there are other classical games in this collection, but those were given a fresh new coat of paint, and in some cases even new mechanics. So the fact they just left this one as is probably means they either didn't have time or they just couldn't come up with anything. And honestly, could you?
The old chop.
I don't really understand why this exists. Woodgall Jr. already exists, it came first. We didn't need a literal palette swap. I mean, hey, I can perfectly understand that coming up with ideas for games can be quite difficult, and coupled with having to code, design, and develop each and every single one of them, it's a miracle this game even came to be. That being said, if you're going to copy your own homework, then at least do it for a different game, like Attack Vector or hell, Zombat. We have Zombat 2, why not give us Zombat 1? It's just very odd. This one is good, don't get me wrong. Now we're getting to the enjoyable part. However, the thing with this one, being one of the very first machines you get to play with, is very basic, and the goals are pretty easy to achieve. Still more fun than regular air hockey, granted, and as such, you'll probably stop playing it pretty early on. A shame really, but I guess it does a good job of getting you started in the whole world of arcades with something simple.
But now we shall both surely drown, said the frog. Lol, said the scorpion. Lamau.
We're now getting to the middle part where I feel mostly neutral about a good chunk of the machines. However, that's not to say I haven't got a lot to talk about. Except that is totally the case with Toad and Turtle. It's just Frogger, and sure, if you like Frogger, you'll like this. But I'm not a huge fan of frogs or jaywalking, so this is as high as it gets. Though I will say, the gore in this one got to me the first time I saw, like, jeez! For a bunch of bleeps and bloops, it is a bit disturbing. Another one I've barely played because this one is actually Puyo Puyo, and while I can't deny that Puyo Puyo is probably a fun game once you learn every single possible setup for combo 20 plus chains with a no-scope and a side of fries, I have never been good at Puyo Puyo, and have never been interested in being good at it either. Because honestly, it just isn't the kind of puzzle game that I like. You might like this one more than I do, and that's completely fine. It's a perfectly functional game, and this ranking is more subjective than objective, so if you like this one, good for you!
Let us commence forth. British?
Table football, or foosball, or some people call it, is a decent activity, and while it was a bit fun at first, all you really have to do is mash space constantly and hope the ball goes in the opponent's goal. Which, as far as accuracy goes, it hits the nail on the head, because that is more or less how a lot of people play it. Or at the very least how I play it. I like the trail that appears behind the ball when you do a charge kick. It reminds me of Super Mario Strikers for the GameCube. The music is okay, though it would have been better if there were chants in the actual song to go with it, because you can hear chants while playing, but you'll barely notice them over the music and other table sounds. But that's just a nitpick, because I don't have much to say about this one.
Observe closely, class. Boot to the head.
Ow, you bullied me in the head!
You are lucky.
While it is a nice touch to make a game reminiscent of One Finger Death Punch, this DLC cabinet has some flaws that make it not as enjoyable as the actual game it's trying to represent. For one, the hits lack the impact that the original game had, that made you feel like you were really kicking someone in the face. There's also the lack of scenery destruction, which I guess is fine, but what really isn't fine is that even when you're still doing well, doing the right patterns and everything, you will always get to a point where you'll get hit no matter what you do. Because the enemies spawn way too fast. Not to mention, sometimes you think you're going to hit one enemy, but you hit another one instead and it messes you up. Frankly, you're better off just mashing and praying to Odin's balls. A shame too, because this is the most expensive DLC cabinet of them all, and all it's done is make me want to play a different game.
Boo!
This one is also pretty iffy, and the only real reason it's up here and not lower is purely because of its aesthetic. I enjoy the quote-unquote horror premise, but when it comes to the actual gameplay, sure, it serves its purpose, but the few flaws it has are very notable. For example, you would usually expect the main enemy, the giant stick, to only change direction when it hits a wall. However, it seems it doesn't care about the laws of physics, because sometimes, just when you think it's safe to try to cover a big area, the stick suddenly stops going away and specifically chooses another route that screws you over, because you're too far into the field to retreat, and boom! There goes your life, and it really doesn't help that sometimes I seem to die for no reason. Oh, and also, you can't capture an area where the spinning stick is. I've tried, and you die anyway. Which I consider a bit bullshit, because being able to do that should be an achievement or goal at the very least. But whatever, if I didn't like old horror movies and slashers, I would have placed this way below.
Nice car.
This one is fun, I guess.
The schwabble double.
No, but seriously, I had no idea where to put this one, as it's probably the one I feel the most neutral about. Like, sure, it's fun enough as far as golf games go. I enjoyed golf in 51 household games for the Switch, I enjoyed golf in Wii Sports. But at the same time, I'm not going to be glued to my screen for freaking golf. It's nice that you can play as Woodgal though, best girl.
Double glibber glabber scribble swap glub. Dibble double shribble shrubble glibber glab.
This one gets a meh from me. Sure, Space Invaders has always been a beloved classic, but there's something about this game that rubs me the wrong way. For one thing, the music just feels weird. It's this weird loop of notes that isn't even catchy. I guess they tried to go for an otherworldly feel. It certainly feels like out of this world, but in a way that, when paired with the animations of the enemies, feels like I'm going to die in 7 days after playing this game. As for the gameplay, well, what do you expect? It's Space Invaders. Not much to say about it, and when compared to the more original games on this list, you can see why it's so low.
We're independent thinkers. Roger, 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 roger.
Yeah, the problem with this one is that despite having good graphics and a good background music, it's so difficult it almost feels like a Kusoge game. Now, for those who don't know what a Kusoge game is, think of games like Cat Mario, Kaizo Mario, the unfair platformer, and I guess pretty much every single heck of a game that adds the words Kaizo to it. It's challenging almost to the point of being unfair, and depending on how the stars and planets are aligned, you will do either incredibly well or be completely ass at it, through no fault of your own. And that's fine. I kinda like it in a way, because sometimes I get in the mood for a challenging, well, challenge. But the fact you have to start from the beginning every time you lose makes it a bit annoying once you've managed to progress a few levels. Since this is a DLC cabinet, I'll say buy it if you want a Dark Souls tier challenge. If you want a more casual experience though, there's way better alternatives.
I'll have 2 number 9s.
This is one of the first machines you get, and while at first I found it very funny with its parody of Grand Theft Auto, it does eventually get a bit samey and repetitive, with it being Pac-Man and all. I will give it credit where it's due. The added mechanic of escaping to a new car when you get caught is a very welcome addition, especially when you're trying to complete all the goals. Once I finished all said goals though, I saw little reason to get back to it, as unlike a few of the other machines, it doesn't have upgrades or a story or character progression, which is fine, obviously, but well, I have my tastes.
I yearned for the mines.
This game is easy, like painfully so. I guess it's somewhat to be expected as it's one of the first machines you get in the game, but even then, I don't think that's excuse enough for the low difficulty in this title. If you don't care about the gold, all you gotta do is dig down, ad infinitum, and you'll barely ever find any meaningful obstacles. And if you do care about the gold, it's not like you can spend it on many things, because yes, you can spend the gold on upgrades, and while one of the machine's goals is to get 333 gold pieces, by the time you get all upgrades you'll have barely gotten half of that amount, and by this point you would probably prefer playing the new machines. It's not a bad game, but if the difficulty was a bit more cranked up from the beginning, I might have enjoyed getting gold a bit more. But as of now, just like Racer Chaser, I finished some goals, then moved on.
Boy, Megan?
You're fired!
So this one is very fun. I just didn't play it too much compared to other puzzle games. It's a fun little challenge, like playing a game of solitaire with boxes instead of cards. And even if it can be a bit intense, what with the timer constantly ticking down, I suppose it only makes sense, what with this being an arcade game and all. A fun game to test your problem-solving skills under pressure. And I'm willing to wage like $10 that the boss in this game could become a Tumblr sexy man. Please let me lose that bet.
Downward spiral, downward spiral, downward spiral, downward spiral, downward spiral.
If there is something I was definitely not expecting, it was to see a homage to a pretty modern and probably not so well known game, Super Hexagon. Now, I never played that one, only saw screenshots, but by the looks of it, it's pretty much the same game as this. And if this game is anything to go by, then it's a decent experience that will entertain you if you're bored in a rainy day with nothing to do. Granted, you have the patience to actually play again once your high score has gone over 100, because after that, oh my god, does it feel tedious. I'm blue, da-ba-dee-da-ba-da, I refuse to get copyrighted. Now, I don't know if this one was based off of another game, seeing how simple it is, but the gameplay loop is pretty fun. You're supposed to destroy all the buildings in the level before you crash into one of them, but the trick is you can't just drop bombs all willy-nilly, because there is a small cooldown between drops, ensuring you can't hit all the buildings in one go. Because of that, you have to try to get the tallest ones first, and that, added with the challenge of pressing the button at the right moment, makes for a pretty exciting experience and a good exercise for your perception.
Of them balls. You need me to throw balls at you guys?
Now, a lot of people would probably raise their eyebrow upon seeing a DLC adding a paintball machine in a game about arcades. Maybe they could argue that it doesn't fit with the theme, but personally, I love it. My dad and I have always shared a fondness for pinball video games since I was little, playing pinball games on his old computer with Windows 98 and the PlayStation 2 in his office. In spite of all this nostalgia though, I can't really bring myself to bring this one higher up the list because it feels like it could have been done a lot better. You can't really change the camera, some of the goals are a bit excessive, there's barely any sounds, and this is a tiny gripe of mine, but why not give us more pinball machines? Just one feels odd. I mean, we have Wood Guy Jr. and Wood Girl Jr., which are literally the same game, so why not offer a pinball machine in the base game to replace one of those, and then have the one in this spot as the DLC, because yes, this is another DLC machine. The difference between both scenarios being that, unlike Wood Guy Jr. and Wood Girl Jr., the other pinball machine would have a different theme and as a result different mechanics. I don't know, it just feels like a lot of potential was lost here, sadly.
You call these things chips instead of crispity crunchy munchy crackerjack snack.
The reason I'm putting this one at this spot and not higher is because while this one has some of my favorite tracks, it feels a bit weird to play, as the notes don't do a good job of following the beat of all the songs. As such, it's a bit more difficult to get perfects. In the first song it's completely fine, however in the second and third, there are times when the timing of the arrows just feel off. Does this make it a bad game? Hell no! Because, like I just said, the songs I like are in this one, and they're absolute bangers to play, and I'm thankful that we get to play with those specific songs at all. Since this is a DLC cabinet, I would tell you to consider this purchase if you happen to like the soundtrack of the game like I do, with the caveat that you won't be able to buy this machine until pretty much the end of the game because of its size, so yeah, I hope you're a patient person.
Space!
This one is straightforward. You're defending Earth from oncoming projectiles, and you gotta save up on the radiation juice so you don't run out and get a fistful of atom up your ass. It's entertaining, especially when you clear a wave and hear that voice that sounds like a buck-toothed nerd with oversized glasses got let into the VA booth. It's simple, and as such, there's not much to say about it, except that it's satisfying to get an explosion combo going. Okay, so the gameplay is a bit ass on this one, sure, but I love absolutely every single other element of it, because it's so goddamn bizarre. You got this droning sound as the quote-unquote background music, you have a protagonist that's screaming existential crap and fearing for his life and sense of autonomy, while unbelievers, yes, unbelievers they're called, throw rocks at you from the sides, and when you get a game over, you don't get a message like better luck next time or anything like that. No, you get shit like control is a fallacy, or some other philosophical nihilistic crap. This game's entertainment value doesn't come from the actual gameplay itself, but from the spectacle it offers as a whole. The idea that the developers thought, with a straight face, yes, let's make a parody of religious video games that is as unnerving as it is stupid. It's even more funny when you realize this is a DLC cabinet and you have to pay for it. No, seriously, I'm not being ironic here, I just find it really funny. The thing about blockchain is that it's an acquired taste. At first, when I played it, it seemed like a load of overly complicated trite, but after a few sessions of it, I consider it to be incredibly fun and engaging. Plus, unlike Stack Overflow, you're not constantly under the pressure of a ticking timer, so you can take your sweet time to consider the best course of action and plan ahead. The music is nice and catchy. I like the background visual, which very clearly references the Matrix. You know, the one thing every single hacking-related piece of media must reference by law. That aside, the little stories or conspiracies you get to enjoy are a very fun addition, and I like going through all of them as I master the gameplay. Overall, a quirky and interesting experience. Now, I've played a lot of video games, and among them are games where you get to play darts, so you know the ones, like a Dragon, Persona 5 Royal. It's standard issue at this point. Now, the trick with this version of darts is that you will inevitably fail to hit what you're aiming for. Always. There seems to be a mechanic where, when moving the mouse forward, the straighter you do it, the more precise it is. But honestly, you can never trust those kinds of things, because how the hell is my mouse going to tell if I'm moving it at a 75 or 90 degree angle? It's not that big of a deal unless you're going for the 6 start finish anyway. I played against all the AIs, and what I assume is the hardest one still can't hit the part of the board they need to save their life no matter how much they try. I've always been a sucker for pipe puzzle games, let me tell ya. It scratches the itch in my ADHD brain in a way that no other type of puzzle game can manage. However, this game does suffer from the pressuring timer issue. Usually you'd get more time to analyze the situation and get to work, but in this game, as soon as the leash is off, you gotta start spinning, man. That slime is not going to transport itself. Think of the brain-rotted children. They need their fix of slime-filled eggs, man. They're getting the shivers!
Because I got all kinds of balls.
Dude, you gotta stop polishing those.
This one is pretty fun and varied. Sure, all the events are just a variation on the same running mechanics, but it's done in a way that makes it feel like a complete package and not a repetitive experience. Plus, it's very fun to try and beat your high score and set the most insane world record possible. Buy this DLC for a fun time. This one is an exercise on reaction time. You have a cannon, the ability to spin it, and millions of helicopters to shoot down who will attack you by crashing on you. Right. Anyway, at first it's okay, but once you get the email from someone calling himself the captain, you understand the true allure of this game, being the one with the highest score among your friends. Though if you're the only one who has this game, it's still fun to try and beat your own score, once the captain is defeated and you get his booty. Kitty pigs! The graphics are pretty cool too. I like the style, which is reminiscent of the industry's first attempt at 3D games. And who could have an arcade without some spicy DDR? Let me tell ya, this is pretty fun. As far as simple rhythm games go, sure, it doesn't get as wild as some actual DDR tracks do, but what we do get is a nice time with some cool music and neat vibes. Plus, the more tracks for this game I can listen to, the better. A fun romp in space, Vostok 2093 takes the form of a shoot-'em-up that happens to adopt the kind of upgrade system that takes me back to those nostalgic games made in Flash and played in computer labs. You get 3 different weapons with their respective upgrades, and the more you upgrade them, the more satisfying they'll be to use. Once you've beaten all the bosses in a run, you'll be taken to the first boss again, but everything will be slightly more difficult, and then you go to the next, and so on and so forth. Sadly, however, after you've beaten the second cycle, it goes back to the first one, and you just loop infinitely from there. It would have been nice if the loop just kept getting more and more ridiculously difficult as you continue to defeat the bosses. I feel like that would have made the experience cathartic. But I guess it's totally fine the way it is. I genuinely liked it, even if grinding for all the upgrades was a bit of a chore. But that's just because I'm always trying to get every achievement in any game I play. If you don't care about those and just wanna blow up some ships, then you'll like this. You know, I really wasn't expecting this one to be as entertaining as it turned out to be, but it is. Having to destroy rocks and turrets and grabbing diamonds is a simple yet effective premise, plus the added challenge of controlling the inertia of the ship when stopping. Also, this might just be me, but I love how the background track sounds like a battle theme for one of the more classic Pokemon games. It's well balanced too, I think. Not too easy, but not too hard either, as long as you're careful in the later levels. Plus, the diamonds don't disappear, so the best strategy would be to clear all the dangers first and then safely take the diamonds to the goal. Though if you're up for a challenge, you could also do it the other way around. Take the diamonds to the goal before destroying all the rocks. The choice is yours, and I like that. Yes, alright, I know it's not technically a game, but it's still displayed in the PDA as an arcade and it still has goals, so I'm counting it. With that out of the way, I really like some of the songs in this game, and I'm particularly fond of Element 92, Arcade Rave, Outrun the World, and a lot of others. Yeah, you know what, I just like the entire soundtrack. Plus, having the jukebox in itself, and the fact you can get more tracks with the pounds you get, adds a lot of charm to an already charming game. And honestly, all the songs I've heard so far are so good, I could probably make another video analyzing them individually. We'll see how it goes. Huge addition, I like it. The game would not be as fun without it. You get this one pretty much at the end of the game, which is a bit of a shame, because it's kind of an RPG, and I love to play the cabinets that have any kind of a progression system. I also like that you get to play as Terry Bogard, or Jerry Dogard. And all the minigames you can play within this minigame are quite nice additions, and also ridiculously funny to have an arcade machine inside another arcade machine. It reminds me of that one scene from SpongeBob where he plays with a dollhouse inside another dollhouse. Even if I'm not a big fan of beat-em-ups, I like the fact this one has pretty long goals, because I don't mind playing this one for a good while. This light attack is so broken too, I love it. This one is pretty simple, but I like it. It's one of the very few games where you have to use the mouse, allowing your fingers to rest from mashing buttons constantly. I saw some people who were disappointed, complaining about how this could have perfectly been a Time Crisis ordeal, for example, and I can see what they mean. They could have definitely made more for this machine. However, I believe this is more than enough, since having to code a whole game like Time Crisis, even if it was against 2D models, although some of the games do have 3D models, so I doubt that would be an issue, might have taken too much time, or resources, I don't know, and honestly, I don't care. This is a fun DLC cabinet that serves to test your accuracy with a mouse, and personally, I'm feeling pretty dang accurate. This game is fun because Bomberman is fun, and as such, it's obviously on a high spot, though funnily enough, I never played Bomberman myself. So this was my very first exposure to the gameplay, and I must say, it has given me a nice first impression of the whole ordeal. The music is pretty fun, and I'm pretty sure there have been a few times where I've hummed it while playing it. It also gives me a bit of nostalgia because its sprites actually remind me of the ones from Pokemon Pearl, my first Pokemon game. Boy, I sure am mentioning Pokemon today. I hope Nintendo doesn't kill me. But anyway, the gameplay loop is entertaining, there is a mod for multiple players for the true Bomberman experience, and the upgrades feel good. Solid game. I think most of the reason why I like this game in particular is that it reminds me of the great era of Flash games. There were plenty of zombie games back then, and a lot of Flash games also centered on gathering money to buy better gear. It imbues me with a sense of nostalgia, as it reminds me of all the times I've played games like Burrito Bison or Toss the Turtle. Plus, the top-down perspective reminds me of awesome zombie games like Death Road to Canada and Project Zomboid, so bonus points for that, even if that wasn't the intention. 2 words. Stockholm Syndrome. This damn game took my wife and kids, burned my crops, and pissed on my dog. So the thing about this game in particular is that after you start playing it, you get a message from a girl named Samantha, who lets you know you suck at the game and need to get good. So you beat her high score and she sends you an update telling you to do it again. And again. And again. And again. And one more time for good measure. And again. I fucking hate this woman! At the time of writing this, the high score has gone up to like 500 logs or something, which is a lot in this game. And after like 20 messages, this shit just keeps going infinitely while she keeps telling me her entire life story. I hate it! And I hate that I actually like this machine. At least with Attack Vector, the guy who challenged you had some decency and gave up after a while. Even showed you a picture of his pussy so you can stare at it long into the night. But this woman is insane! She's the freaking equivalent of a Twitch user who thinks they're engaged with someone just because they gifted them tier 3 subs! Call the police! This one was a bit of a surprise, as at first I didn't think I would actually enjoy it that much, but when I got around to playing it, I found out it's actually pretty fun. It's a game that allows for strategy, but where set strategy isn't the entire game, like in a title like, let's say, Puyo Puyo. I do consider it kind of funny how they reused so many sprites from the other games for the opponents. First you're fighting an alien in Italy, then Wood Guy, then a unicorn, and of course the final boss is Wood Gal, the best girl. I like the devs, they're real cultured.
Dude, you gotta stop polishing those balls.
I can't stop, man! These balls are on fire! Ah!
The concept for this one is so novel, so unique, and so fun, I'm surprised this kind of game hasn't been invented before. And if it has, then that it didn't become popular. This particular game offers an experience that's like pool mixed with those merge games you can find all over the internet, resulting in a surprisingly addicting result. And I'm happy to admit, it's one of those games that make me ignore whenever a machine has broken down or the toilet is clogged until I finish the session, cause it's just that fun. You have to make sure every shot counts, and you can't just make red balls all the time. You need to line up your shot, and try to push balls into each other to allow for more shots, which makes it awfully exciting. And nothing beats the satisfaction of finally getting a white ball. The graphics are nice on the eyes, the music doesn't intrude on your ears, and the sound effects make a good job of complementing the gameplay. Solid recommend. If this was a standalone title on Steam, I would probably buy it. Well, here we are, at the top 3, and what I consider the best and most fun games I have played from this entire collection, starting with one that isn't actually original, but instead a homage to an arcade game I'm particularly fond of. Outrun. Sure, the controls may not be the same, and the vehicle does not feel like the Outrun car at all, but its looks, its music, and overall general vibe has managed to captivate me quite a lot. Plus the fact you can get upgrades, which, in case you haven't realized yet, I'm a sucker for. There's something about games like Outrun that I just find relaxing, it doesn't matter how much I play them. I always come back for more, which goes to show how masterful Sega is at designing arcade games, when a game that's inspired by one of their machines is still pretty enjoyable despite having a few key differences. Cute, fun, and lighthearted. It's my favorite out of the homage games because it feels satisfying to break the blocks. The dog is cute, the power-ups are hilarious, the music is nice, the transition sting between levels is like an earworm, all the levels are varied and beautifully designed with nice looking pixel art using the blocks as pixels, and honestly, why aren't you playing this yet? Just look at it. It's got a cute dog. Why don't you want to play with him? Are you trying to make him sad? Because if you make him sad, I'm going to kill you. This game could have perfectly been its own standalone title. In fact, it almost feels like a second game to complement the main one, as I spent a very long time playing it as the story progressed, and even after I finished the main story to unlock Endless Mode. The gameplay is super fun and addicting. The music tracks are absolute bangers, especially the battle music. The power-ups feel satisfying to use, and you get them as a reward for getting 4 in a row or more, which rewards strategy. The dialogues are nice and charming, the character designs are top notch, there is Doggy, the progression system makes plenty of sense and feels rewarding, and overall it's just full of character and charm. Honestly, when deciding my absolute favorite out of them all, it wasn't even close. This is the game that really got me hooked on Arcade Paradise. This is the game I kept coming back to despite all of the cabinets I kept getting. This is the game I'm going to be playing for a very long time, and I'm gonna do it with a smile on my face. I love it! And with that, we're finished. I don't think I've ever written such a long video before, but honestly, I enjoyed it. It gave me something to do during the Easter holiday, and it was about time I revived this YouTube channel by allowing me to be creative once more. As all I've been doing this year is just Twitch stream after Twitch stream, and I only uploaded highlights to YouTube, and that's kind of the reason why I made this video, because I was getting a bit burned out of doing the same thing over and over. Worrying about whether or not I'll get viewers each day, never knowing if I'll ever get that damn payout that never seems to come because the ad revenue on Twitch is a piss poor joke. I'm not saying I'm doing this for money, oh no, I mean, I wish, but no. I do this because I have an artistic soul, and I need to let some true creativity flow out from time to time. So who knows, maybe after this I'll make an animation, or a review, or another ranking. The possibilities are endless. I just know it'll be worth it. So, if you've watched up to this point, allow me to thank you personally from the bottom of my heart. Having people actually engage with the things I do makes me feel like I really do have a purpose in this world, and makes all the hard work really feel worth it. If you know of any other video game related things I could rank, please let me know, so long as it's nothing too ridiculous. Though, then again, who isn't a little bit crazy? Have fun, and enjoy the rest of your day and week. I'll see you in the next one!